Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. So we will briefly, walk through some of the highlights from our research and provide a summary of our findings to make sure we're all on the same page and to give everyone a refresher, as well as for the new people joining. Then we will spend the majority of the time discussing ways that you all, as well as the industry as a whole, can act upon these takeaways and recommendations and really catalyze the market opportunity for AI in the smart home as a whole while addressing some of its key challenges. And then we will discuss potential next steps quickly at the conclusion of the discussion today, as well as ways to continue the conversation and act upon some of our agreed upon moves and findings. So I'll go over this really briefly, but CABA is the Continental Automated Building Association, a nonprofit research organization that funds a lot of research efforts for the intelligent building space as well as the connected home. This research project was to look at the state as well as the potential evolution of artificial intelligence or AI in the connected home market. So we spent a lot of time, analyzing current adoption. We conducted a survey to understand, how users and stakeholders within the home landscape view and prioritize AI solutions, as well as to understand what they're looking for in the future. We were supported by a steering committee of 5 key funders. A really big thanks to them. We collaborated with them pretty significantly across the months as this research project was underway, and really appreciated their insight and feedback to help hopefully make these research findings useful to the connected home industry. And then lastly, Harbor Research. We were the consulting firm selected for this research project. We're a boutique research and consulting firm that specializes in the evolution of emerging technologies. We're out in Denver, Colorado. We've enjoyed a long relationship with CABA and really appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys on such exciting projects in the connected homes, connected building industries. So as we set out to, to conduct this research engagement, we first wanted to examine kind of the current state of artificial intelligence in the connected home industry, defining how exactly artificial intelligence applies within the smart home space, as well as the current state of AI capabilities within homes, what use cases we're seeing high adoption and high interest among stakeholders, and what could be some potential future underserved areas. We also tried to contextualize the application of AI in the connected home space in the broader evolution of AI technologies and techniques more holistically. And then we wanted to understand, how connected home stakeholders, particularly homeowners and tenants of multi-dwelling units, adopt AI solutions, trying to understand, what features they prioritize, what pain points are, and benefits most influence adoption of AI-capable devices, as well as their willingness for improvements that could be realized through artificial intelligence. And then secondly, we wanted to, take this research, take these findings and analyze them to understand, how ecosystem participants can address new opportunities, looking at new potential go-to-market channels, player ecosystems, how they could address some of these major pain points and barriers to adoption, and overall catalyze the evolution of AI in the connected home industry as a whole. And that's one of the key goals that we're hoping to get out of today, to really have an open discussion where you guys take the floor and discuss ways to and discuss some ideas and some tactics to further catalyze the evolution of AI in the connected home space. Artificial intelligence. I wanted to flash this up. One of the things we do in our report is kind of define, what exactly artificial intelligence means in the context of the connected home, as well as some of the various subdomains. It's obviously, a very complex technology that is constantly evolving. Harbor, one of our ideas is that we're kind of in this third stage of AI evolution, where a lot of new, more advanced techniques such as deep learning, as well as computer vision and natural language processing have grown a lot and seen strong adoption within solutions and devices on the market today. But trying to understand, how these all fit together, artificial intelligence is kind of this general bucket that includes many different, subdomains like machine learning, which is, um, mostly focused around algorithms that can analyze and learn upon a set of data, as well as various applications of machine learning applied to specific types of data, like computer vision for video image data that's used in security systems in homes, natural language processing, which is able to analyze and understand voice or human speech or text data, such as being able to communicate with your Amazon Alexa to control some home functions, as well as deep learning, which involves the creation of a neural network that can evaluate its own inferences and improve its capabilities over time to get more towards the state of artificial general intelligence, and even other more emergent ones such as noise classification to help detect false positives within security systems that we heard through some of our interviews for this project. We also conducted a survey to about 400-ish homeowners and about 160 multi-dwelling unit tenants spread across the US and Canada, across different age ranges and income breakouts. One of the key, we have a number of these findings available in the report. It paints a really interesting picture of how homeowners view AI in the context of connected home. But one of the key findings was try to understand which ecosystems would have the most interest for an AI-based improved experience. And we see kind of throughout a lot of our findings that home entertainment and security, given kind of advances in the spaces by companies like Amazon or Alarm.com or Simply Safe, have seen a lot of AI-based adoption yet. But there is also significant interest in more of these mission critical or underserved domains from an AI perspective, such as heating and cooling, lighting and control, energy management, some of the more like critical functions for home experience that we don't see a lot of AI adoption yet today, but there seems to be a large interest, or at least a large number of stakeholders or demographic base that would be interested in AI-based improvements to these systems. And one of the things that we're trying to understand is how the industry as a whole can collaborate to achieve better AI-based adoption within those more mission critical underserved ecosystems. Here's kind of an example map of some of the use cases. From what we've seen today, a lot of our the use cases of AI that have seen adoption in the connected home industry are very organized closely by one specific ecosystem, such as security, energy management, mission critical systems, or even device control and home automation, as well as through one specific aspect of artificial intelligence, like one technique. So like machine learning being used in energy management to predict peak loads and schedule devices to conserve energy accordingly, or like natural language processing being used in the device control and home automation space to allow voice activated assistants to control home devices. We do see kind of silos between these home ecosystems as well as these AI techniques that may be preventing kind of the idea of combinatorial all home AI capabilities that we looked at. And that we're looking at some of the ways to break down these ecosystems as a key aspect of how we can further catalyze the evolution of AI in the connected home space. Perfect. So that was a very brief refresher. I want to leave the most time for an open discussion. Before we dive into some of the discussion questions, I want to go through some of the key takeaways of the report at a very high level. And these are some of the findings from our research that we came across that I'd like to share with you guys. First, AI adoption in the connected home space is uneven. Most devices that have AI capabilities today are very related to the security and entertainment ecosystems, such as doorbells, security cameras, home hubs, etc. Even smart TVs leverage AI to some extent. While other, connected home service ecosystems like energy management, water management distribution, air quality monitoring, etc., are very more nascent in terms of adoption. But again, as we saw, there is some interest and a potential white space opportunity for AI to penetrate these verticals. Secondly, as we discussed, the connected home AI ecosystem is organized by use case and technology, and combinatorial benefits of, being able to leverage AI to make predictions about usage across devices such as, lighting, home security, and other systems have yet to be realized, as most suppliers tend to focus on very one-siloed ecosystem today. From our survey, we found that cost and security concerns remain the largest barriers to adoption. These homeowners tend to cite cost and security as the major pain points. Cost we have found pretty consistently across all of our connect smart home research. But we were interested to see that data privacy and cybersecurity were top of mind large pain points for homeowners. And addressing them may be a key way of spurring greater adoption between these key stakeholders. Mission critical home services tend to be underserved today. We don't see a lot of AI adoption. Some, particularly innovative firms like a Brainbox AI are making progress developing, AI's predictive maintenance solutions for HVAC, for example. But there seems to be a large opportunity for greater AI capabilities within these ecosystems. And then lastly, large technology suppliers, particularly Amazon, Meta, and Google, are investing heavily across the AI technology stack, acquiring not only application providers, but tools and frameworks. This seems to position them as key stakeholders and key players within the AI market in the future, and may require collaboration with those kind of major player ecosystems in order for AI solutions to be brought to market. So yeah, here's some of our key takeaways. So I'd love to hand it over to you guys. We looked at some of the key trends and forces that are driving this opportunity, and I just want to ask to the group that we have here, what are you guys seeing in terms of AI adoption within the homes today? What can be done to kind of improve the access and availability of these AI solutions, and how do you guys see it evolving in the future?
I wonder if Ken, do you have anything to add here? I think you have a lot of knowledge and experience on the topic.
Thanks, Greg. Actually, I chair the world standards body for ISO and IEC in Geneva, Switzerland, and we have a very active project applying artificial intelligence to energy management that is consumer-centered. In other words, the energy management will be done in the home or apartment for the purpose of helping the consumer determine where to get energy, either from local sources, meaning wind, solar, or storage, or from transactions with neighbors, that's transactive energy, or from aggregators, or from the incumbent utility. And our view is artificial intelligence is a very broad field. So we're focusing on what we called a narrowly tailored artificial intelligence that is aimed at the data we have available and applied to the problem at hand. I could go into much more depth than that, but the work we're doing is public. It's being led by the major industries in our field. And our aim is to promote international trade. We are not government, we are industry that writes ISO and IEC standards. And nearly every country on the planet is a member of one or more ISO and or IEC committees.
And that's really great to hear. I'm wondering, are there a few kind of focus areas that you all have that are top of mind, just as examples for this group that can put some of that into context?
This is Ken. Are you asking me?
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
yeah.
as I said, our focus is on the practical issue, if a customer has purchased a solar and maybe later on added storage like a Tesla Powerball or one of the
Right.
competitors, how do they manage all this? We have found through my own company and others in the committee that providing customers with the consumers with a lot of information like charts and graphs and kilowatt hours has limited payback. Consumers don't have the patience. First, many don't have the knowledge to ask the average consumer what a kilowatt hour is, and they have no idea. They'll probably tell you it probably relates to electricity. That's about it. So what we want to do is make the process as simple as possible. So the artificial intelligence does all the heavy lifting, and the consumer either has all the decisions made automatically, or in the worst case, is told, well, if you do the dishes later, you'll save a quarter. What do you want to do? And the consumer makes a very simple decision. Do I need the dishes now, or can I wait 3 hours?
Sure. Yep. That's a great example. Thank you. And there's many that stem from that as well, in the energy usage context, to be sure, but also just looking at it as a system as a whole. The home energy system or home energy management system presents a lot of unique opportunities there. My basic philosophy is we're dealing in a very complex technological world, but the last thing we want to do is tell consumers how complicated it is. To the consumer, it's magic. You turn on the TV and you can watch broadcasts, you can watch streaming, you can play games. We all know that it takes an immense amount of computing power, system planning, and all sorts of organization to make what looks very simple happen. So that's what I see as the goal of AI, is to solve complex problems and make it look easy. Interesting, thank you. Other examples from the group here of those kinds of AI applications that maybe folks are actively working on, or that they see as particularly interesting in the near term for smart home or connected home?
Yeah, this is Walt. Hi, everybody, and thanks for the presentation. It was very interesting. I assume you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a ton of questions. I'd love to dig, and I know this always happens when you present data. I have a ton of questions on some of the inside things of this data. Like, for instance, number one on the list of the CHI survey was use of AI for home entertainment. I thought that was quite fascinating, what the definition of home entertainment was. I'll just bring it around to CEDIA's side of this. We just released a white paper called the Integrator 2027, where we talk about what we think the integrators are going to need to do around the year 2027. And basically, we've taken technology out. We used to do this every 5 years, and we used to make predictions on tech and things that are going to happen. But now tech kind of seems to be a tool. And as Ken was saying, which I was going to say myself, there is too much complexity, and there's too much choice, and consumers are getting frustrated, in my opinion, especially so that when entertainment went to the top of the list, one of the things that I know that we deal with is content fragmentation. Just sitting down to watch something is difficult. New seasons are in this service, last seasons are in this service, this box provides this service, that box provides this service, licensing changes. Now they don't provide it. Now this service provides it. So content curation is going to be, as well as, I know a lot of the algorithms today suggest shows for people based on costs to the providers, not necessarily truly what they want to see. So I think AI is not going to be sold or adopted by the end users as a thing. It's more so, from our perspective, going to be one of the tools used for curated experiences by people that could manage technology for the consumers. So I know that's another level where someone's providing a service for someone, but we see AI as critical to that in all the areas that you cited, whether it's entertainment, it's energy management, it's comfort and security and or privacy. Healthcare, I thought was interesting. I wondered if that included living in place or if people just what their definition of that was. We think that's also going to be critical there as well. But to answer your question, AI as a general bucket holder is critical matter as well. If we can get things more unified and easier to use, great. But I think in the end, people are looking for more curated experiences and less complication.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Walt. And yeah, I invite you to check out the report. We have a lot of more interesting, more data related to a lot of those topics. For example, like in healthcare, we see a lot of it focused on elder care today. In the connected home, trying to detect falls and notify people accordingly and schedule care and stuff like that. What I'm interested from your perspective is what are kind of the system integrators and installers saying about this? I was wondering if kind of AI, in the automation enabled by it for, example, like predictive maintenance would actually, threaten some of the traditional business models of installers and integrators today. Is that something you're hearing, or like how, but from your perspective, how are they responding to, increased AI adoption in the home?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny, every time something is perceived as a threat, it ends up being an opportunity. It happened with lots of stuff. It happened with MP3s, and it happened with. I mean, integrators have always been in the industry of putting in DIY things for people, but just maybe didn't realize it. Whether it's TVs, DVDs, there's lots of devices that get integrated also with proprietary stuff. Then when Alexa came along, or I should just say voice control as a category by major players, that was originally seen as novelty, but then possibly as threat, but now as opportunity. So as the proprietary system providers make their own things, their own systems, they are also backwardly or compatible with the major voice control players. And they're all also adopting Matter, and they might still do extensive control beyond Matter's core control, but they're embracing Matter as, this is something that hopefully ends up being real, just like MIDI was, and it was fantastic, still is fantastic. So to answer your question, that's why we're getting back more into the curation of things. The integration community used to rely a lot on revenues from hardware. And today they should be, like most other trades, relying more on revenues from the services they provide by using all the tools available, whether it's voice control, it's AI, and then curating a holistic experience. So really, it's not a threat if you look at it right. If you look at it from an old school mindset, it's been a threat for 20 years if you're not willing to change. So most of the people that we talk to and that we're in discussions with don't see it as a threat. They see it as maybe a way of helping to hopefully provide more consistent user experiences and more reliable systems over time. But with the caveat, which you did mention, there's going to be a trade-off for privacy if you want a lot of these things to happen, and potentially security risk.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And anyone else, have examples of, what you guys are seeing in terms of AI adoption in the connected home industry?
Michael, I think we have Brian with his hand up. So Brian, feel free to speak. And if anyone else would like to, we are trying to do an open discussion. So please, for anyone who'd like to wait in queue, feel free to participate.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. This is Brian Holland with NEMA Codes and Standards. One of our perspectives is that most of the connected technology, the AI, is really in it's really in the aftermarket, right? It's the consumer-based products appliances, utilization equipment. We've seen some trends towards lighting controls, thermostat, doorbells. But again, it's kind of the entertainment front. It's kind of an extension of social media or unique ways of communicating and storing data. But from my perspective, beyond energy conservation and effective use of energy, where I think AI could have the most impact is in safety and electrical safety. And that's where I think homes are still missing the mark. And what I'm referring to is right now, the core, the infrastructure of a premises wiring system is dumb, for lack of a better term. It's technology from 100 years ago. And we still have a significant shock, electrocution, fire, arc flash problem here in the United States and globally speaking, somewhere around the area of 75,000 home fires every year from deteriorating electrical systems. And one thing that AI may be capable of is constant monitoring of a premises wiring system and turning these dumb devices like circuit breakers, wiring, receptacles, switches, lighting outlets into smart systems that protect the homeowner and protect the community from these unwanted side effects from electricity. So if you did that, if we could incorporate that technology, again, it's hidden from the consumer. They don't see it, but they benefit from it from both, reduced insurance rates. It increases the value of the property and the building, and it still could create some of that functional crossover stuff to their entertainment systems and their energy systems. So one example from an energy standpoint is fault detection and diagnostics, FDD. We've inserted that into the International Energy Conservation Code. We have it in ASHRAE 90.1. And if you're not familiar with that, you should look it up. It's really cool stuff. Basically take really large HVAC equipment and we put lots of sensors all the way through the entire system, and through software that is able to communicate with the internet, and through AI, it's able to use the example about the dishwashing, but instead of looking at energy rates, it looks at costs, it looks at supply chain, it looks at labor rates, and will tell the building owner, hey, you got a valve that's getting sticky, and we don't even recommend you change it right now. But if you do, here's how much it will cost and how much energy savings you'll have if you do it today, if you do it a week from now, if you do it 3 months from now. And that system that's really dedicated right now to things like economizers and large HVAC systems could easily be incorporated into anything that has electrons flowing through it. And we could do that with homes as well. And the last thing I'll mention, which I think is a big miss for the 2023 NEC, we're introducing a brand new article, Article 726, on Class 4 fault managed power systems. And this could really be a game changer in the way that we transmit power and data over the same circuits. And what Class 4, you can kind of think of it like PoE on steroids. And unfortunately, the big miss in my mind is they've put in a prohibition for Class 4 power systems to be used for 1 and 2 family dwellings. In my mind, that would have been an amazingly perfect type of occupancy that Class 4 fault managed power systems could be used. So we have a placeholder in the code for the 2023, and it might be something that we can see expansion into the residential market in the future if the technology proves what we think that digital technology is going to be. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. I'll definitely check that out. Any other comments from anyone on the call about kind of applications of AI you're working on, you guys are seeing within the market?
I can share some thoughts. This is Jeff Thomas. I work for Snap One, mostly focused on lighting, but have been involved in the smart home automation market for some time. As I think about this, and as I see solutions that have been tested, I continually think about, at least for the products that we provide, there's a point where you cross that threshold of being too smart, making the system be too automatic. And, you know, you set up lights to turn on at night. When you wake up, you get up and they turn on automatically for you so you can go to the bathroom or whatever. And that works great in almost all cases. But the second you have that one case where there was something that changed and you were trying to do something else, that automation is frustrating. And so the way that I look at it is there are things that we want to be intelligent about and be and to automate, to provide smoother, curated experiences for our homeowners, our customers. But you have to pay attention to that line of when does the frustration level, when do you hit that frustration level of a homeowner saying, you know what, forget all this technology. It gets in the way when I try to do this. I just as soon turn the lights on myself. And so, we're looking at the balance of what we can provide as a system with all this, machine learning and artificial intelligence, how much can we apply and where do we apply them? I think we have to be careful about how we apply them in our solutions so that we don't hit those points that become frustrating to customers. Package detection on a front porch, that's great. Everybody's going to want that. Really simple things like, tell me when my garage door got left open at night. These are things that are really simple and straightforward. But some of those things, like even turn on my lights when I hit pause during a movie, works in some cases. It doesn't work in some cases. So we're looking at ways to embrace artificial intelligence, to improve experiences, to streamline experiences. There's a lot of complexity around it, but we're looking at it from that perspective of being careful, not trying to do too much.
Interesting. That's a great point. And like one of the things that we looked at in our kind of survey analysis was, where that line might be, and trying to, we think it might, differ by, the demographics of the homeowner themselves. Some, are more comfortable with the digital experience. More younger, higher income people tend to adopt kind of smarter connected solutions more so than other demographics. So like if you're like advising a company, like how do you identify where that line would be? How do you say, like, how do you put your stake in the ground and be like, hey, this is too much, this is too smart of an experience? And how do you identify that in this kind of changing marketplace?
From one simple way to look at it, at least, let's take lighting for an example. As an example, one simple way that I heard it put was, if you want this behavior to happen every single time, then make the system smart. Make it do that automatically. Those are things like, I walk into a closet and the closet doesn't have windows, and I always want light in that closet. I go into I open the garage door and it's dark outside. It's nice to turn that garage door on. Those are simple, straightforward experiences in spaces that, from a homeowner's perspective, I think they're going to agree that you always want those activities to happen. So as the experiences become a little more complex, that's where you start having to be careful about what you do. We look at things like, let's look at what people do in their homes. And when we start to detect a pattern, maybe we can suggest, hey, do you want to make this simpler? We see you do these 3 steps every night. When you arm your security system, you turn off your lights, you lock your front door. When we see that happen every night, we could say, theoretically, hey, we notice you do this. Do you want to do this automatically every night at 10:30 p.m. or whatever it is? that's an interesting way to approach it also, and it gives the customer control. And sometimes in addition to that, you're going to want to allow them to edit that because maybe they change their mind based on this behavior or that behavior. But then you start looking at how much, I don't know how you put it, but how much do we bug the homeowner about things like this? We need to streamline things. But if I'm asking a homeowner, every day when they change their thermostat temperature, or every 3 days when they change their thermostat temperature, is this good? Does this work for you? Then that's another way where I think we can cross that line of making these experiences that we think are, and they really could be a lot better, but maybe it's a little too much friction for the homeowner. They don't want to deal with it because we're taking them into a new environment where there's so much more capability, yet they also sometimes still want the ability to control it just like they're used to. So it varies a lot. We're trying to find the right balance there on, what can we do, and how does it fit into each homeowner's lifestyle?
Interesting. Yeah, makes sense.
Anybody else on the call here have any other thoughts there? I mean, I really appreciate that, Jeff. I think those are great points. But I mean, I think that this is probably a pretty common problem, where to draw that line, where to start versus where to add features over time, that kind of thing as well. Anybody else have any other thoughts to build on that?
Walt, I think you have your hand up, or maybe.
Yes, sorry about that. I was gonna concur. That hits a real hot button for me as far as when a user interacts with a device that has machine or some form of AI in it, and when they don't, and they can still get into equal amount of trouble, if not more, by maybe doing setbacks that are no longer energy efficient. And there's a lot that we could do that could be a lot better. So again, I'll just go back to, I'm hoping on AI in products to make some smarter decisions and or recommendations, and take a little less choice out, and and look at things more holistically as far as outside, inside temperature, humidity, weather, forecasts, and all this stuff to make things move a little bit more seamlessly, both from an energy and a comfort perspective.
I wonder if maybe Elizabeth Parks, if you have anything to add. I see you're active there in the chat and have a lot of experience in the connected home space with connections.
Hey, yeah. Hey, Greg, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Well, I think I jumped in a little late because I had a different call that I was on, but really interesting conversation here. And I mean, there's so much to talk about, but the systems versus single point devices, and I would call the device stacking that's going on in the home is, I mean, there's just a lot going on with the complexity. And on the energy side, we see a complete stall out with thermostats right now, where adoption is between 11 to 13%, hasn't really moved in 4 years, which is a long time for nothing to happen. So trying to understand, why that is, right? That's a big question I'm looking at in our research. Like, why are thermostats stuck? We've got all this talk about energy management, demand response, utilities doing pilots, all sorts of channels putting these devices in the market, and yet the numbers aren't moving. And so, and this is from a hero device, that started really the smart home. I mean, one of the first devices that was connected that enabled so much to happen. So, I mean, it's an interesting thing to understand what the consumer's doing and how they're making decisions. But I think the industry has to start looking at engagement as non-engagement. What are we doing to make things happen for the consumer that they don't actually have to do anything, right? And I think that gets to the point where somebody's talking about lighting and scheduling and, how does it work or not work? And it all has to just work. And we're still far from that. The Matter thing, I think, is also really interesting because, we've got to save the smart home message going on from that group. And I don't know. That seems a little disservice to all the players who've been building this industry for the past, 70 years. I mean, we've been studying it for 36 now. So I think Matter is an awesome initiative if they can get that to happen. Lots of questions, though, of what that means and who's going to strip all their differentiating features down to create that integrated interoperable experience. And I think that's a real question, right? Because clearly these players want to own the data in the market. The data is the future services that they can deliver. And so a lot of companies are going to have to give up a lot to make all this happen. So I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out, especially given the historical context we know about standards and the development and innovation over time. So those are my couple of comments. I hope that's helpful. And I mean, I love this industry, studying it. And so always love to listen to what other people have to say as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
I was going to say, Mike, maybe we can spark with another question. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know if I had a question on this, but on the Matter protocol front, I think that's really interesting. I definitely think that if it can achieve its promises or the potential of it, it can have a great impact on the catalyzation of kind of connected devices and interoperability within connected homes. I'm wondering if you guys have any perspective. How will this affect the AI market as well? Does there need to be a new AI focused standard to address data privacy as well as the data infrastructure in the home? As kind of like a follow up to Matter, or is there opportunities in kind of the Matter initiative to promote some standards or policies specific to artificial intelligence in the home space? What do you guys think?
I mean, from my view, AI is big time important in the future of all of it, as far as the integration between products and then what can happen because of that. So it's a very fragmented market, though. And so talking about mass market play with a smart home is definitely something we're working towards, but there's a long way to go. And I think that's where sometimes I see mixed messaging, at least in the media, where there's just so much emphasis that we're already there. And I don't think we are at all. We still have a lot of work to do. But AI and all the sensor-based technology is going to be a huge driver of the next generation of services.
Definitely. Well, then maybe back to one of my kind of original questions. How can this market become less fragmented? What can be done to kind of improve AI adoption with some of these more underserved mission critical functions? How can these walled gardens of this current ecosystem be broken down? What do you guys think kind of the industry or your companies can do to help kind of realize a less fragmented, better future for AI in the connected home? I think Snap One may be working on kind of home kind of a whole home combinatorial AI solution.
Well, this is Ken Wax. Snap One is a combination of developer and distributor, so they're in a unique position to try to bang heads and get the suppliers to cooperate. But fundamentally, we're in a very competitive market, and every time we try to come up with common solutions which technically work, the manufacturers are concerned about their products becoming commodities and indistinguishable. And they try to convince their investors that their little twist on the solution will corner the market. Both positions are not exactly on the mark, but unfortunately, I've seen that year after year.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd say also this gets down to these companies working within their own ecosystems and or opening up and there's a lot to say about companies that can maintain control of the experience. And once you open it up to all these different vertical ecosystems, you're potentially creating lots more value, but at the same time, creating a lot more complexity for your own business to navigate a successful experience. So I think it's going to still be a challenge. And you can see a lot of the sort of luxury providers who they're not going to do that, right? I mean, because that will ruin their experience. So they're going to stick with their very high end, ecosystem of products that they know is going to work really well and won't mess with their brand power. I mean, I just came off another call. We're doing a webinar next week, and it's all about brand loyalty and the impact of device returns and why are devices getting returned? What's the value of the brand across the lifetime? And what's the experience for the consumer when they have to return a brand? 55% will go buy the same brand, but 45% won't. And so you just took a hit on your company's, potential lifetime value and the perception from the consumer. So I think it's a pretty hard question that a lot of companies are working at, though. And clearly the whole home play is only going to happen through the integration of these different verticals, but they don't even know how each other operates in a lot of cases, right? I mean, home health there, and that is so huge and so fragmented. And so to bring that under the whole home play, which I think will happen, is really hard. And that's certainly a complicated market to navigate given its healthcare. So a lot of work for the industry still to do, I think.
Eric, I think you have your hand.
Yeah, thanks. I think that was Marta. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah, a couple quick comments. One back to Ken's. Yes, we are as I like to call it, a manufacturer. We're kind of the duck-billed platypus of the industry in that we make our own products and distribute others. I'd love to say that our degree of influence on the distributed products is one where we have ultimate control. Clearly, that's not the case. But that being said, interoperability is key, and so one of the things from a storefront standpoint is we continuously work to ensure that the things that you buy from us do work in our ecosystem in the way that is expected in a reliable fashion. And so I would expect that to continue, and even more so as we move forward into some of these newer areas. I think one other thing that I kind of find interesting, this is more Eric as a person, not Eric as a representative of Snap One necessarily, but when you look at this list of brands, one of the dog fights that's happened over the years, and Elizabeth, I think you hinted to this, is around who controls or who owns the front end, the experience to the user. So if you're taking a home, for example, who owns the front end on the homeowner experience? And Sonos is a big example in the audio and entertainment world. Back to Walt's comments previously, they have their front end. Spotify has tried to lean in, obviously, on the content side, and Spotify Connect, for example, put Spotify in the front, not Sonos in the front, which is interesting. And as we think about voice, Josh is on this list, and they're a partner of ours. The voice interface is at the front, so to speak. And what's interesting about AI is that, in a perfect world down the road, kind of to Jeff Thomas's comment, there is no interface, right? Surely there will be, but I'm curious what others think about sort of this interesting battle historically of whose app is being used to drive these things, when in the future, in theory, there's no need for an app, or there is no app, or is that too ethereal of a thought even to put on the table?
When you say there's no app, you mean it occurs automatically, so the user doesn't have to provide input.
Exactly.
The best UI is no UI.
Exactly right. Yeah, the difference between automation and intelligence. Right?
Well, let me leave you with this thought. You've probably all at some point seen the Masterpiece Theatre British dramas like Upstairs, Downstairs, showing in the 1800s and early 1900s, the rich had a staff of servants. Well, think of that as a human-based AI. The servants anticipated what the masters wanted and had it ready even before the master rang the bell. Is that what we're looking for, except to do it by machine?
It's an interesting proposal. I think back to Jeff Thomas's comment around how much is too much. You know, I mean, is there a happy medium that can leverage the no UI, to Walt's point, or by having something that's it's a hybrid, right, where there's knobs and dials, for lack of a better term, to allow you to, you know, how much AI do you want? You know, select 1 to 10.
I think back to your question, it's probably, it depends, and there's maybe a blend between the two, but right now things are either scheduled, which can be wrong, and or anticipated, which can be wrong. So you kind of think want the best of both worlds to be able to make a decision on the fly, but also have some things that you do expect because of the way you live to happen pretty much on schedule, but schedules change and lives change. So it's an interesting question, Ken.
Great. Well,
You know what
I
it
know
does-
we
what
only
it-
have a couple minutes left. Yeah, I was just going to say if there's any other questions or topics that folks want to pose, happy to take those now.
You know what it does raise,
Yeah.
as far as what Ken said, is the role of robotics. We didn't really touch on that at all. And of course, AI is in robotics. And a couple of the studies I've read, and I don't know, Elizabeth, if you have different data, but it's not being really too widely adopted right now at this point. So if you're talking about having things done for you, like back to Ken's thought of somebody, a human body can do something, what's everyone's take on how robotics is going as far as adoption for people's willingness to have that in their lives, in their homes?
I saw an exhibit at the Consumer Electronics Show last year that was actually a robotic kitchen that actually had a bunch of recipes, and then all these arms pulled out your pots and pans and ingredients and turned on the range and did the cooking and delivered the food. I don't know how many people would like it, but it's there if you got the money.
So I was just going to jump in, maybe, and mention this one company. I think in our research, we certainly are studying the robotics area and robots, but it doesn't, consumers, I don't know if they really want like a robot person, kind of creepy. Maybe that's coming down the line, but there's one company we spoke to recently called Labrador, and they basically are doing a robot that's not a person. It's more looks like a moving box that's for the senior assistant kind of industry. And so that guy, his name is Christopher Downing, and their system is backed by Amazon's Alexa Fund, iRobot, and a couple of different VCs. So that's pretty interesting with mapping what's going on in the home, and then really helping seniors. I mean, that's the target market, with things like, getting a can out of the pantry. Like if they can't get up, that can help them get that. And the things that happen on a daily basis then get put into the machine learning and AI systems and learned. And so I would suggest that it's coming, but like the way this company Labrador is doing it, it's not like a robot person, it's a robot box, I guess, is what it looks like. And it's doing basic stuff, but if you think of people with disabilities or in wheelchairs or older who can't get around, it's pretty impactful. So that's one. And I know that some of the other vacuum cleaning robot companies are also looking at all that spatial mapping in the home and the sensors and figuring out how to help people in the health and wellness side.
Hey everyone, this is Daniel here from Multitech. So when I was at Mobile World Congress this year, I saw a 5G barman. And I can't imagine, to your point, Elizabeth, I can't imagine a worse scenario than a 5G automated robotic barman. I mean, you go to a bar to sort of hang out or, you know, share your problems or something. But where I do see some potential is like you said, some more robotic type equipment in the home, like vacuum cleaners, that kind of stuff, that perhaps reduces some of that drudgery further. But also risk management in your home as well. You know, that hasn't really been very automated, has it? I mean, there's a number of risks in the home around air quality, leaks, from all the fixtures and fittings in your house. I wonder if that's an area where there's a lot more AI and automation benefit to perhaps open up risk management and insurance into consumer homes.
Absolutely, yeah. And just one last thing, you know, there may be an opportunity for more, you know, point robotics applications. We've seen like iRobot on this list with like the Roomba seeing some traction there. That may has kind of stalled out recently, but it'll be very interesting to see, you know, whether robotics and AI as a whole, how it evolves. But I think we're out of time for today. So thank you so much to everyone for this discussion. It's been really fascinating. I really appreciate it. As Harry wrote in the chat, you know, feel free to reach out to him or myself for any other questions, or to Greg for CABA if you're interested in more details on the report. But yeah, thank you so much for attending today.
Thanks. And I should mention that we're also doing a research project in this year on smart home energy management. If anyone is interested in taking part, we have a couple funders already, but we're looking to get more, and it's a similar vein to this current project and similar process. So if you're interested, please